We say all the time, you can't just pull over at the next cloud. There's no second chances. There's no doing it again. You have to do it right the first time. Hey, I did my job really well. I might have saved someone's life today.
Joshua Burrell, Aircraft Maintenance Director at Chennault Aviation.
Finding a cracked rib on this airplane. A lot of people think that you have to be a rocket scientist to work on an airplane, or even honestly a rocket.
Joshua Burrell, what are the qualities of an aircraft maintenance technician that really kind of sets these people apart from others?
So one of the things that really sets apart an aircraft technician from somebody that, just wrenches on a car or something like that is the amount of integrity you have to have. We say all the time, you can't just pull over at the next cloud. There's no way to...
Not at 30,000.
No. Well, even 3,000 feet. Once you're in the air, you're kind of dedicated to flying until you start coming down. So there's no second chances. There's no doing it again. You have to do it right the first time. And one of the main things is integrity. So that could mean, okay, well, I do the work according to my tech data. And that could mean, hey, I can't fix this. There's something wrong. We need to get an engineer involved. We need to get some more expertise involved to help us fix this correctly because I don't have a second chance.
What does it look like? Because the general public doesn't realize kind of what goes on behind the scenes. We all think like, this could be fixed relatively quickly. When is it at the point where it's like, yeah, we got to take this plane out of commission? Like, we can't fix this in a few hours.
I'm not a commercial aircraft mechanic. I'm actually working as a director of maintenance at a flight school and a charter operation. And I do customers' airplanes too. And it's a really hard conversation you have to have sometimes with a student pilot. They're all excited. This is their first solo flight and they're going to go out and they're going to be alone on the airplane for the first time. And you have to tell them, hey, I'm sorry, we have to cancel your flight for maintenance. Well, I have something I cannot fix in 15 minutes. I got to pull the airplane in the hangar. I've got to replace a major component. You're going to have to come back and try again tomorrow.
When you talk about customers' airplanes, what are they flying, like Cessnas?
Mostly Pipers is what we deal with. So Piper Cherokees, Piper Archers, Piper Comanches.
For the people who don't know what a Piper is, how big is that?
It's about the size of a Cessna, 20, 30-foot wingspan airplane, something designed to haul 4 to 6 people for about 4 hours. No bathrooms, no kitchens. Most of the time, no TVs.
The people that fly them, do they have years of experience? Are these like people who like just kind of got their license or is it across the board?
It's across the board. I've got one of my airplanes I'm currently doing an avionics upgrade on. So he's getting a glass panel. He's getting a new autopilot. He bought an airplane right after he got his private pilot's license with us. He turned around and put the airplane back in our shop to do the upgrades. But I have other guys that have been flying or other customers that have been flying for 20 years. And of course, the flight school, I have everything from, our instructors that most of them are our students that we've hired. They have 2-3 years worth of experience, but 1,000 hours. I've got guys that have flown for 20, 30 years and only have 500 hours. It kind of depends on the customer.
Yeah, and it's a variety of different, obviously, people who have a plane. Some people can, it's not cheap to buy a plane.
A couple of my airplanes that I maintain are actually partnerships. So a couple of my airplanes are actually owned by 4 different people. And they split the cost of ownership. They split the cost of maintenance. And then whenever they fly, they'll just put the gas back in that they used. I also have customers that have outright bought their own airplanes. I have customers that, they're concerned about money every time we bring it in for annual. So I try as hard as I can to prioritize what repairs need to be done. Okay, hey, your seat's ripped. It's not a safety issue, but you do need a new alternator, and that is a safety issue.
Yeah.
So we'll be able to say, hey, why don't you bring it back in 6 months and we could fix your seat, but we need to fix your alternator this time.
Yeah. How far, because obviously you probably work on all Pipers, like ones that are probably a little bit older that have been around for a while versus like a newer one? Like, what is it like to work on something that's been around for a while versus something that's brand new? What is the technology? How far has it come? And I guess one thing from a tech standpoint, is it easier to work on the newer stuff?
It can be sometimes. So for the most part, my oldest airplane in my fleet is a 62. And the newest airplane that I've really had come in that's a customer's airplane was a 2004.
Okay.
But the way that the aircraft is built is basically the same. What changes is the tech, like you said, and it's mostly in the systems and the avionics. So there's a couple things that get a lot easier with the newer airplanes. So we have much more high-tech voltage regulation systems. Back in the day, it was all a vibrating reed system that had to be adjusted. In this day, it's solid state. You just put the box in if the box is broken. Avionics can be a little bit more challenging on older aircraft because the wiring gets so old that you don't know, okay, is this just a bad pin or has the wire broken inside a casing and you have 9 feet of wire and 50 of them to choose from? But then the new stuff can be a little bit more infuriating because it's all designed to talk back and forth with each other on a digital, either a CAN bus system or a high-speed data bus system. And all that takes is a little bit of extra resistance in a pin or a little bit of extra resistance in a wire crimp. And all of a sudden it's not talking anymore, but it's not going to say, hey, I've got a bad wire and it's this pin and it's this end of the wire, so just go there and replace it. You still have to troubleshoot and figure out, okay, where is it coming from? And especially, in a smaller shop, we don't have a couple $10,000 troubleshooting boxes. So you got to get creative. You have to add, resistors into your test sets and shoot resistance and do a little bit of math to figure out, okay, is this pin good? Is this wire good?
You have to start with some of the older stuff. Like you said, the old one was in the 60s.
Yeah. You
can still appreciate some of the old stuff, right? But you have to kind of learn on it, right? Before you can kind of learn the complex stuff.
It's really good to start with the older stuff because the older stuff, the componentry is big enough you can hold in your hand. The new stuff, it's going to have a circuit board that does everything that the entire box for the old, radio did, and it's going to fit in the palm of your hand. So I can't look at that and actually be able to pick out, okay, this is the amplification circuit for the receiver. This is the amplification circuit for the transmitter. This is the radio key system. You have to understand how a radio works to be able to understand both, but it's nice having an old, King KX155. You could take it apart and just trace the wires through the box and know what they're going to.
How does someone get into this particular trade? Like, if I guess you can go a couple of different paths. If you want to work on smaller airplanes or more commercial airplanes and even private, like someone who's just kind of coming in, how do they figure out which direction to take?
So one of the easiest ways to do that is to actually see if you can shadow a shop for a day. It's a little bit harder to do with the majors, but most small A&P shops, if you say, hey, I've just got my A&P, I want to know what life is like in your shop to see if I want to go GA or do I want to go corporate or do I maybe want to find a helicopter operation.
So are you saying to walk in there, like literally trying to walk in and...
Yeah. Most small GA operations are at small airports, and most of the time, if you call them, they'll give you the gate code to come in or at least come pick you up at the gate. I know, like our airport, we have one gate in and out of the parking lot, and that's it.
So before you could step in there, you need how many years of schooling?
So that kind of depends on the local school and the local program. There's a couple schools right now trying to do a fast-tracked 1-year program. Our 2 programs that we have at our school, we have an 18-month button seat program is what we call it. So that means you come in, it's just like going to college, just like going to school. You come in, you sit down, you have lecture time and you have lab time. That takes us 18 months. From that point, you get certificates of completion for the course, and you have to go to an FAA testing center. At the FAA testing center, that's where you're going to sit with your DME, designated mechanic examiner, and you have a oral section and a practical section for both your general, your airframe, and your power plant. And that your oral section is literally, hey, I'm going to ask you these questions, and I need you to show me that you have the knowledge behind the questions. They're not necessarily wanting a textbook answer, but they're wanting to make sure you understand the general concept. And then you'll do the practical section. The practical section is just what it sounds like. They'll get there's a program that the FAA uses called IACRA. IACRA will have certain tasks that you have to do, and it'll be something simple like you need to terminate a hard line. You need to make a flexible line. You need to blend a nick and a propeller, something like that. And once that's done, the DME will sign you off and you have your A&P. Before you do that, though, you have to take a written test for your general airframe and power plant. And that normally is part of your testing fees that you'll either pay to your school or you'll pay to your testing center.
So from there, once you pass everything, then you can walk in to a small shop at that point. And at that point, when you walk in, what do you learn above and beyond what you learned at school?
We always say that the A&P license is a license to learn. An A&P course, no matter how long it is not going to be able to teach you specialized knowledge for every single operation. So my operation is a Part 61 flight school with a charter and a outside maintenance on general aviation. We're not going to touch anything really with the turbine. We're not going to touch anything that's really heavier than maybe 6,000 pounds. Our maintenance is a lot less specialized. So I have a couple guys that I know, okay, they're better on sheet metal. These guys are better on engines or whatever. You go into the airlines, you're more than likely going to move from shop to shop to shop to shop. So you might be in the engine shop for a while. You might be in the sheet metal shop for a while.
So they move you around.
Yes.
Saying.
Sometimes in the airlines, you'll end up on the line team. The line team is who will go out and fix the airplane while it's at the gate. You might end up in a back shop. So that would be, the airplane comes in for an inspection once every couple of years, once every couple flight hours or cycles. So you're in a hangar and you're inspecting one airplane at a time. There's operations around the country that do all kinds of different stuff. There are charter operations that run purely cargo, and you go far enough out in the middle of nowhere, it might be a small airplane that's running cargo in and out of a mountain town or off of an island that has an airstrip and a ferry, and that's the only way to access it. But it just kind of depends on what you're interested in, how far you're willing to travel to go experience these different shops.
What can kids expect? Because a lot of kids who want to start into this field saying, well, how much money can I make? Like, what can you, just starting out, and do you hit a ceiling where you need to go, a different direction? Like, where do you start off wage-wise?
So normally starting out in most shops, smaller shops, you'll start somewhere between $20 and $25 an hour, depending on where you're at in the country too. So, we're in South Texas, $20 to $25 an hour will get you a one-bedroom apartment as long as you're not driving a $60,000 car. Most of the airlines, I wouldn't be able to even tell you, because when I was leaving A&P school in 2018, they were paying like $21 an hour, and that was good money. But, times have changed. As far as the cap and the ceiling, the sky's really the limit. It depends. It's kind of like being a doctor. As a mechanic, the more letters you have after your name, the more money you can ask for. So, you get your A&P, you get your IA, which is your inspection authorization. Maybe you get a bachelor's degree, get a master's, a doctorate. You can kind of just keep moving up in most of these companies and end up, I know mechanics that started out and they're making $500,000 a year because they're up in, VIP or VP or C-suite in airlines now.
But all those individuals started off most likely in the field and then worked their way up?
Yes. Aviation is a really good field about internal advancement at these companies. So if you want to, you started American Airlines as a line tech and you keep adding degrees, you keep adding letters after your name, you're going to move up in the company. And as you move up in the company, of course, you're going to get pay raises and benefit increases and things like that.
Yeah. What does it look like from your perspective, from a shortage standpoint? You speak to different people. Some say it's a 10% shortage. I spoke to Boeing, who was on this podcast. They said they need over 700,000 over the next 15, 20 years.
Yeah, getting into 2030, 2035. The shortage is insane at this point. We're looking at trying to help that shortage with our A&P school, Chennault Aviation. One of the hardest parts about that is the U.S. government doesn't recognize being an A&P as a skilled trade. So we're not given the same kind of help whenever it comes to getting into these schools money-wise. Most A&P school programs in my area are running between $40,000 and $70,000.
Big investment.
It's a big investment. And knowing that you're going to have to pay off that over time, it can shy a lot of people away from wanting to actually sign the paperwork and get into it. And I'll say it's a labor of love too. You have to want to do this because, yeah, there are cheaper schools that can get you into better paying professions. But you don't get to touch airplanes in those schools. In my case, you don't get to go fly airplanes. I got my pilot's license through the flight school that I work for. So I could fix the airplane and go fly it. And it's just you can't do something that cool in automotive mechanics, or you can't do something that cool if you become an HVAC technician or something like that.
Yeah, there's something that this mystique, like there's something about working on airplanes. But I think a lot of people, when they think of trades, and especially kids, they're thinking, I want to be an electrician, I want to be HVAC, plumber, welder.
Well, I got to talk up my trade.
Please. And that's why I want to keep shining the light on it. I don't feel kids know enough about it.
And I mean, a lot of people think that you have to be a rocket scientist to work on an airplane, or even honestly a rocket. My A&P license gives me permission to work on a Falcon 9, the Artemis system, Blue Origin. Any of those spacecraft are worked on by A&Ps. They're maintained by A&Ps.
Well, when you talk about that, so at that level, like, where do you need to be to work on something like that, certification-wise?
I know
knowledge?
SpaceX was hiring, I think it was either MIT or Aviation Institute of Maintenance graduates right out of school. Working on this stuff is not actually that hard. You just need to get the knowledge base of not only, this is how you use a torque wrench, this is how you use safety wire, this is how you do this, and this. But also, this is the legal rule set that we're going to work around. So the FARs, the Federal Aviation Regulations, everything you do has to be according to that rule book. Part of that is knowing, okay, well, I can't go out and work on something unless I have the tech data. So that involves getting into the manufacturer's manuals, the parts manuals. Okay, I run into a situation where I don't have tech data. I'm working on a 60-year-old airplane that they didn't think would last this long, and it's broken in a new and interesting way. So now I have to get a hold of an engineer to help me write an engineering order so I can legally do this repair. That's what A&P school is really doing, is it's teaching you the basics on how to work on an airplane, the basics of the rules you have to play by, and a foundation that will let you grow into whatever industry or whatever aviation sector you end up getting into.
How important is mentorship for somebody just coming through? And can you think back to somebody who's really helped you along? Maybe there's multiple people that really pushed you forward in your career.
Oh, yeah. Definitely there were a couple guys at the Conroe Airport. That's where flight school started at. My original boss, Jeff Grant, across the ramp from us is Avionics Unlimited, Johnny and Gina Bain. They really taught me a lot about aircraft avionics work. Couple old hats that have just been around the airport forever. Bill Taft taught me how to rebuild an engine correctly. Across the taxiway Foxtrot from us, Greg and Gary with G&G Aviation. They were big helps to us. I mean, even still to this day, I've been with Chennault Aviation for 8 years this year. And I'll still drive from my airport to their airport to ask them questions or bring them apart and say, hey, what do you think about this? And the mentorship never ends. And then you end up being the mentor too.
You pay it forward.
Yeah.
You pay it forward.
I think it's a really important thing that this generation of aviators is trying to change. There was a really bad habit of some of the older hats where they were just, if I tell this person coming up behind me my secrets on how I'm doing this, they're going to take my job or they're going to take my business. And it's like, no, obviously, if you have a business and you have a job already, there's enough demand. You need this person to know that so they can pass it on and they can keep passing it on. Because, I mean, yes, everyone has to obey the technical data, but there's always little tips and tricks that you have that okay, if I do it this way, it's easier, it's safer. It's still according to the tech data, but it's not going to be a 2-hour job because, I finagled a piece of rubber hose on the end of my speed handle and I figured out a special way to get to this bolt a little bit quicker. It's going to be a 1-hour job.
Mentors are, I think, extremely important. And for any trade, right? The people who have helped you along the way, they have X amount of years of experience. They've seen a thing or two. What are the qualities that you see that makes a good mentor?
Well, a good mentor to me is always someone that's willing to listen and then not make you feel bad that you haven't seen this before. So there's a couple people I just kind of stopped going to because, I'd say, hey, I've got this problem. I don't quite know where to even start. You young kids don't understand anything about these old engines. This is what's going on. And it's like, yeah. No, I've just not seen that before. You could have helped me without having to go through that whole rigmarole. Now I don't want to come back to you.
I mean, you have to be a teacher, but you also have to have the patience.
Yeah, patience.
And the people who have helped you, would they help you outside of those hours? Like, could you text somebody, after work?
If things got really bad, I could definitely text people. I know Jeff actually helped me change my sister-in-law's brakes the other day. I promised I would do it for Christmas. Took a little while to get it together. Well, and I ran into a problem and I said, hey, Jeff, I know you're home and I know this isn't an airplane question, but could you come over here and help me out? And he said, oh yeah, sure, man.
But that's what you want, right? Look, everyone gets busy. You have your own stuff to do, but if you're open and willing to help that person out, it's like you said, the ones who are not really the right mentors are the ones that you would never go back to.
Yeah.
Like you even said it, like I would never go back because they're not as helpful as somebody who is more open-minded and patient.
Well, and there's a certain amount of pride you have. If airplane flies in, you're doing a massive inspection on it, and you find something that's obviously real deep, but kind of pretty broken. There's a certain amount of pride in that. Hey, I did my job really well. I might have saved someone's life today finding a cracked rib on this airplane. Well, sometimes you have to recognize that as, a boss or a mentor. Say, hey, you just cost us a lot of time and a lot of money, but also good job. You did a really awesome thing finding this because you probably saved someone's life, like I said.
When it comes to these newer planes, is there so much redundancy and technology built into this that, if something was to happen, like there's heavy redundancy, more so than years prior?
Yeah, it's not just redundancy, but it's also automation. So that's becoming a really big thing in emergency situations, is as long as you know how to operate it correctly. It's, the old adage, anything is a smoke machine if you operate it wrong enough. If you know how to operate your aircraft correctly, in the case of an emergency, the airplane can help you out in so many different ways. We're seeing that a lot in general aviation with a lot of the auto land systems coming out. I think Garmin had their first successful actual emergency auto landing a couple months ago, where the pilot of a King Air became incapacitated. And the person basically riding in the front seat, not a pilot, reached up, hit the auto land button, and the aircraft landed itself. And I mean, I know there were a bunch of people patting themselves in the back after that one. Those systems only work if they're maintained and inspected correctly. It doesn't necessarily make my job any easier, because now I have to inspect these systems too, make sure they're working correctly. But again, that goes back to the whole aviation safety. You have to do your job correctly the first time for those systems to actually work and do everything correctly.
Do you have a success story of somebody who's come through that you've seen that, you weren't sure they were going to make it, but they stuck with it and now they're flourishing? Does anybody come to mind?
Not really, but I mean, I think everybody that gets into aviation kind of already has to have that bug, that they have to look up at airplanes and think they're cool. And I don't know, we just seem to, I guess, get good students that, I mean, most of their hardships are financial hardships when it comes to getting through the school. But most of my team that I could say out here now, I mean, all of my students, I think, are doing an amazing job. But that's just because they took that first step. They're trying something new. They're trying something that really isn't that common of a job, and they're doing great at it. So we have 5 of my students up here currently. Actually, 6 of my students up here currently. Jeremy Janes, Vincent Sin, Samantha, can't pronounce her last name, don't ask me to. Preston, same thing. Bryce Norris and Joshua Flores, and they're all either our hybrid program students or our button seat program students. And just to see them, most of them come from zero aviation experience to now competing on the world level is amazing.
Yeah, it must be satisfying for you to see that.
Oh yeah, especially. This is kind of what started my aviation career, was AMC. I was in the Air Force for 4 years as a C5 crew chief. And I got out and went to A&P school, and my current coworker, Mr. Riccadelli, was the skills team coach. He said, "Hey, we have this competition team. We go every year and compete at the AMC that's at the MRO every year." And I said, "Well, that sounds really cool. Let me try it out." And in 2017, we won second place in the school category. In 2018, we won first place in the school category. So being able to come back as a coach and have my own team up here is awesome.
And you've walked in those shoes, the pressure.
Yep.
Right?
I know the
watching you.
shakes. I know the sweat.
Yeah. Amazing stuff. If people want to find out more about your school or your organization, where do they go? What social media?
We're on social media at Chennault Aviation on Facebook, and we're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're on Blue Sky, I think. You can also go to ChennaultAviation.com. And I also have to plug, we're connected to several different Chennault and Flying Tigers organizations. So the Chennault Aviation and History Museum, or Aviation and Military Museum in Monroe, Louisiana, and the 69th DRS Flying Tigers. They are both heritage organizations that we are under. So we call ourselves Flying Tigers because we're directly down the line from General Chennault. The 69th DRS is currently working on getting us scholarships. Our goal is to not only get scholarships in $25,000 ranges, we're trying to get fully funded scholarships. So students that are, especially in foster programs, can come to our school without having to pay a dime. We're working on the scholarships, not only for our maintenance side, but also our flight school side. And we're currently trying to open up flight and maintenance school in Monroe, Louisiana. So ChennaultAviation.com, that should give you links to everything else. 69DRSscholarships.org, I think, is the scholarship website. We're asking for donations to that. Anybody out there willing to donate and help somebody come up in this career, please do.
Joshua, it's been a blast having you on the show. Thank you so much.
It's been fun.
All right.